Everyone thinks Trump's strike on Iran was about nukes. It wasn't. Not really. This is the real reason, and it's been building for decades. On the morning of June 22, 2025, the United States and Israel launched a coordinated, multi-theater strike on Iran. Satellite images would later show over 24 separate explosions, simultaneous hits on enrichment facilities near Natanz, long-range missile silos in western Iran, and command and control bunkers near Tehran. Precision, timing, total information dominance. This wasn't a loose cannon attack. It was an intelligence symphony, highly choreographed, deeply premeditated, and logistically flawless. Within minutes, the headlines arrived. Trump orders surprise strike on Iran, Israeli intelligence linked to target selection, Middle East on the brink. But that's what everyone saw. What most missed was how little justification was offered and how quickly the public fell in line. No formal address, no leaked buildup, no obvious provocation, just a wave of explosions and then silence. So why now? Why this? And why so fast? Some said it was about Trump's collapsing approval ratings, an attempt to change the narrative after months of protests, inflation, and scandal. Others pointed to Israel, claiming it was the culmination of years of pressure for a joint preemptive strike. Still others called it long overdue, saying Iran had played the West too long, too well. But what if none of that was the root cause? What if this strike wasn't a breaking point, but a continuation? A delayed echo of a betrayal that happened over 70 years ago. To understand what happened on June 13, you have to go back to 1953. That year, Iran's Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh moved to nationalize the Iranian oil industry, cutting out the British. The CIA, working with British intelligence, launched a coup. Mossadegh was ousted. The Shah of Iran, a Western-friendly monarch, was installed, and Iran's budding democracy was crushed. The message was clear. You can have sovereignty, but only if it doesn't interfere with our interests. The Shah ruled with increasing brutality. Political opposition was silenced. The CIA helped build SAVAK, one of the most feared secret police agencies in the region. By 1979, it all came crashing down. The people rose, the monarchy fell, a theocracy took its place. The revolution wasn't just anti-Shah, it was anti-West. In November 1979, Iranian students stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. They took 52 American diplomats hostage for 444 days. Since then, the U.S. and Iran have been locked in a Cold War that never quite goes cold. Sanctions, proxy wars, drone strikes, cyber sabotage, assassinations on foreign soil. The players change, the theater shifts, but the script never really does. So when Trump's strike hit on June 22nd, many saw it as something new. But to those who followed this history closely, it felt inevitable. Because while the missiles fell, something else happened. Something far less visible, but just as powerful. Oil prices spiked within hours. Defense stocks surged. Certain investors made a killing. This wasn't just a military decision, it was a market event, a story of war and wealth, of destruction from above and profit below. And who's really pulling the strings? By early 2025, the groundwork for escalation wasn't just forming overseas. It was being quietly laid in Washington, Tel Aviv, Riyadh, and Wall Street. Washington was buzzing. Lobbyists for defense contractors increased their presence on Capitol Hill. Private briefings were scheduled for armed services and intelligence committees. Classified memos began to circulate, some marked sensitive, others left conveniently vague. Think tanks, often backed by weapons manufacturers and foreign governments, released reports like the rising threat of Tehran's regional strategy, preventative deterrence in the Gulf, why Israel needs U.S. strategic backing now more than ever. Former generals, now sitting on defense contractor boards, toured cable news studios, never disclosing their financial interests. Every word carefully chosen, raise alarm without sounding alarmist. Iran's enrichment activity is no longer theoretical. We have a closing window to act. Our allies are watching our resolve. It wasn't a push for war, It was a nudge toward inevitability, a slow drumbeat of seriousness, sobriety, stakes. By April, the groundwork was laid. Lawmakers weren't debating if something would happen. They were asking how soon. Far from the Pentagon, the algorithms were already watching. Oil volatility spiked in early May, not from any confirmed event, but based on chatter, tanker route data, and predictive modeling of Gulf instability. Large energy firms began hedging for disruption. Certain hedge funds, well-connected, better informed, made massive directional bets. These weren't rogue moves, they were signals. Because in today's market, war isn't an anomaly. It's an asset class. Defense firms raised Q1 guidance. Raytheon, Lockheed, Northrop, Boeing Defense. Investor calls began using coded phrases: heightened geopolitical exposure, strong defense cycle momentum, upcoming demand tailwinds in the MENA region. Translation: someone's going to start shooting soon, and we're ready. At the same time, something subtle began happening in the media. Coverage of Iran started to shift. No single event triggered it, just a slow accumulation of stories. Iranian missile tests labeled as provocations. Regime rallies framed as militaristic displays. Satellite imagery presented with concern, not context. The language changed first, from regional influence to aggression, from defense posture to escalatory behavior. Then came the talking heads, former officials, think tank fellows, defense consultants. They weren't calling for war, they were asking questions. Is Tehran daring the West to respond? Are we ready if Iran crosses the line? Will this administration project strength or weakness? It wasn't fear-mongering, it was fear-seeding. And when the strike came, it didn't feel like escalation, it felt like confirmation. For years, Israel had pushed for a joint strike on Iran. Covert ops, cyber sabotage, assassinations. They didn't just want action, they wanted alignment. And in 2025, they finally had it. Trump needed a distraction. Israel wanted a green light. The market wanted volatility, the machine wanted motion. And then, right on cue, Israeli intelligence delivered what may have been the final push. A classified report claiming Iran was weeks away from building a bomb. The report was never made public, but it was briefed to US officials in May. Its timing? Perfect. Because the most powerful weapon in geopolitics isn't a missile, it's urgency. By June 1st, the narrative was set. The actors were positioned, the markets were leaning in, the intel had been seeded. So when the strike came, it wasn't spontaneous, it was scheduled. Because in this system, war isn't a reaction, it's a production. Scripted, rehearsed, executed. And by the time the first bombs fell, the money had already moved. Trump got what he needed: control the narrative, optics of strength, temporary political relief, news coverage pivoted, protests disappeared from headlines. The election cycle hit pause for the war cycle. Behind the scenes, Israel got their payoff. Years of lobbying, decades of pressure. Suddenly, results. But was it about stopping a bomb or remaking the region? Iran didn't collapse, it recalibrated. Iran didn't fall, its program wasn't destroyed, just buried deeper. Retaliation didn't come the next day, it didn't have to. Iran plays the long game. While the West celebrated optics, Iran recalibrated, cyber attacks intensified, proxy militias rearmed, asymmetric threats reactivated. This isn't the revenge you see, it's the revenge that outlasts you. Inside Iran, the strike became a pretext for more repression. Dissenters were labeled traitors, protesters disappeared, reform was crushed. Bombs hardened borders and hardened regimes. The people caught in the middle, they stopped demanding change and started fearing invasion. So why did Trump bomb Iran? To stop a nuclear threat? To help an ally? To win the news cycle? Or because our system rewards conflict more than it rewards peace? Maybe all of the above. Maybe the better question is, how many times will we replay this story before we finally change the script? Coups, crises, airstrikes, back channels, markets up, people down. We don't just wage war, we repeat it for profit, for power, for narrative control. So maybe this wasn't about Iran or nukes or even Trump. Maybe this was just the latest chapter in a story we refuse to end. A world where war is business, and business is booming. If this helped you cut through the fog, subscribe. Not because we have all the answers, but because asking the right questions is where change starts. Comment below, was this strike justified, strategic, or just another chapter in a story we refuse to end? And stay tuned for our next deep dive. Because in a world set on fire for profit, clarity is power.